By Congressman Mike Gallagher. He's up in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Congressman, I got a quiz for you. Did you watch the Super Bowl this past Sunday?
I did.
Did you? You know what the difference between Pat Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers is?
Oh, Hugh. I don't know.
Pat Mahomes went for it on fourth down.
Oh, Hugh.
He did. He did repeatedly. I thought, there you have it. We went for it on fourth down. We have nothing to regret. We left it all in the field. We have nothing to regret. I'm just wondering about if you've gotten over that yet.
I will say, I think Mahomes made some of the greatest incomplete passes of all time.
Without question.
I mean, just unbelievable.
Now, I wanted to compare the impeachment trial now underway. If we were to talk about who's going to win the Super Bowl right now, that would be akin to what's the verdict going to be in the impeachment trial. I think it's the stupidest waste of time. I hope you're not watching it because it's after 44 members of the Senate vote that it's unconstitutional. The result is not in doubt. He will be acquitted. So it's like watching a Super Bowl rerun and pretending you don't know that Tom Brady's going to be the MVP and the Buccaneers are going to win.
Yeah, I don't think it's the best path forward, and I did not watch the opening arguments yesterday. I mean, particularly when you have a legitimate debate that we talked about a month ago on your show about whether the Constitution allows Congress to impeach a former president and private citizen. And the Ludwig article that you apprised me to, I think, was quite convincing on the score that it is not. And it seems that the majority of the Republican caucus believes that it's not. So I'm not sure what this accomplishes other than to fan the flames of division. And then on a practical level, if indeed the Democrats' goal is to diminish former President Trump, well, I can't help but think that once conviction fails and once they fail to prohibit him from running again, he'll emerge stronger from this exercise.
Oh, I told that yesterday to Jonathan Capehart, and he looked shocked. But they never understand Republicans. The bottom line is he's been acquitted twice by hyper-partisan Democratic impeachments led by a half-crazed Nancy Pelosi. That's the thumbnail summary of what's gone on.
Well, and again, I think it illustrates the dangers of crying wolf. I mean, when they did the first impeachment, the first rushed impeachment, my argument against it was that it lowered the bar for impeachment. It was impeachment in the absence of a crime, and I think because of the unseriousness of that effort, it can't help but diminish this effort right now.
And it means we're going to get more of them in the future. But I want to ask you actually about a much more serious subject than one that's going to have long-lasting implications. The Congress, whether we like it or not, is about to spend $1.9 trillion. And that's like the train is coming to town. Whether or not you get on it or where you get off of it, it's coming. And there's nothing we can do to stop it. And I know that you'll vote against it, but in the course of fashioning it, I am curious, one, is there anything in it for defense at all? Because now the country will have spent $5 trillion in less than a year, and I don't think any money went to defense. And secondly, I want to talk about the tax credit for kids. But first, what about that defense spending? Is any part of this bill pro-defense?
Short answer is no. I mean, to take a step back, it's not just Republicans, reflexively being against spending here. I mean, we just spent $1 trillion not too long ago, not all of which has been spent. So as a practical matter, I think it's worth stepping back and saying, okay, what worked, what didn't, how would unrelated provisions like a $15 minimum wage, affect job creation at a time when people are already struggling, things like that. So a legitimate debate that should be had about the merits of this bill or lack thereof. But I take your point that the train is going to leave the station and few Republicans will be on board. And nonetheless, we should try and shape it in small ways to improve the bill in any way we can. I think there might be a small amount of money that's going towards the Defense Production Act in the bill, but I don't think there's anything meaningful for defense or for the defense industrial base. There's a $10 billion provision for cyber, about $690 million of which would go to CISA and $25 million of which goes to the new National Cyber Director. But mostly it goes to tech modernization, a fund that would allow agencies to upgrade their networks after the SolarWinds attack. So that's a defense-ish provision. But no is the short answer to your question. And if we're talking about a stimulus, I can't think of a better stimulus than money going to defense in general and shipbuilding in particular. For every job created in my shipyard in Northeast Wisconsin, for example, there's 6 or 7 jobs created downrange. You have suppliers from 19 different states. There's a huge downstream impact when you invest in shipbuilding. And we also need additional repair capacity in our repair yards for the Navy. We have a couple subs we've been waiting to repair for years now that aren't certified to dive right now. There's no capacity to do service life extension on our cruisers. We have a backlog on ship repair and modification and upgrades. So, that would be an economic boon, not only to repair yards in San Diego like NASCO, but also in Mississippi and right here in Sturgeon Bay if the Navy got creative. So there's a variety of things you could do from a defense perspective that would have an incredible economic impact.
Well, the reconciliation has to go through each committee, and I'm wondering if House Armed Services has done so, and whether or not you just pass out copies of Jerry Hendricks's To Provide and Maintain a Navy, his new short book that is a primer on where it could go. They should be. It's $1.9 trillion. It's so staggering amount of money not to put anything into the defense space. I mean, and these are union jobs. Do the Democrats on House Armed Services have no sway?
Well, first, let me say Jerry's book should be required reading for every member of Congress. In very succinct fashion, it lays out the case for sea power and why sea power is so integral and has always been integral to American defense. So if Jerry's listening, he should know that I have a heavily dog-eared and highlighted and marked up copy. And
Jerry went to Purdue. He doesn't know how to work a radio. I know he knows how to build ships, but he went to Purdue. He doesn't. The radio stuff just completely baffles him. But To Provide and Maintain is a good book. And anyone, your Democratic colleagues would realize they're creating union jobs when they do shipbuilding and shipyards.
There's also some, relative to $1.9 trillion, there's some very small investments you could make that would have a huge impact. For example, in the last budget cycle, last appropriation cycle, the Marine Corps asked for $125 million for 48 Tomahawks, ground-based long-range precision fires, which are absolutely integral to achieving the Commandant of the Marine Corps' vision for the future of the Marine Corps, distributed teams of Marines doing sea denial in the Indo-Pacific region, basically holding the PLA Navy at risk for very small amounts of money. Well, the appropriators, in their infinite wisdom, zeroed out this request for absolutely no reason at all. And so for a very small amount of money, we could make up that lost ground and provide the Commandant, which is with one of his top priorities. And that would have a direct impact on our ability to deter the Chinese Communist Party. And again, it sounds crazy. $125 million is a lot of money, but relative to $1.9 trillion, it's loose change you might find in the couch.
Well, can't you on Armed Services and Rob Whitman and other members get together with Ken Calvert, who's the senior Republican on appropriations on the defense side, and go together and say, hey, look, you want a bipartisan fig leaf for your $1.9 trillion? We'll give it to you if you'll give us, a tenth of it, a fifth of it, and put it into, or a 20th of it, and put it into the Philadelphia shipyard, Great Lakes shipyard, these cruise missiles that you're talking about. Just give us a fig leaf to defend. Is there no way that can happen?
There is, and some of those discussions are happening behind the scenes. And I will say, at a time of intense partisan division, at least when it comes to defense, we do have some champions of sea power in particular, and Joe Courtney is a great advocate, and we've worked very closely on a variety of issues. And Jim Langevin, who I've worked with on this cyber commission, has been the leading proponent of getting some of the cyber money in there.
And your buddy, Senator King, Angus King of Maine, he's one of the 50 votes they got to get. And so
exactly.
He can have whatever he wants, right? Have you called him up and said, Angus, put the money in the budget?
He's also married to a Packers fan, so his judgment is sound.
So he's probably been sleeping on the couch because he probably noted that they didn't go for it on fourth down too many times.
Well, America, sometimes America needs a king, despite our history, and now is that time. No, go ahead.
He can have whatever he wants, right? He and Joe
Him and
Manchin
are the most powerful men in Washington right now. But yes, and obviously Angus feels very strongly about shipbuilding and about cyber and just about the defense of the United States. So this is something we're going to have to make a more concerted argument and a bipartisan argument to the appropriators because that's a lot of money. And I worry, Hugh, as we've talked about before, we may not get many bites at the apple when it comes to a higher top line for defense, when it comes to maintaining the 3 to 5% real growth that multiple secretaries of defense have said is absolutely necessary for the survival of the United States. As former Secretary Mattis said, America can afford survival. And in a constrained budget environment post-pandemic and within a Defense Department that seems like it wants to prioritize more domestic priorities as opposed to geopolitical priorities, we are going to be struggling over the next 2 to 4 years to make that case for investing in defense, for not only fixing our readiness crisis, but realizing the military rebuild that we've talked about but never actually funded.
Well, the next 2 to 4 weeks spends more than the top line increases total will be over the next 2 to 4 years. And so I wish you luck in trying to get people to pay attention to that. Quick question. Of their $1.9 trillion that I've seen, the only thing I like is the $3,000 per kid tax credit. It's the least bad amount of the spending. Are you in favor of that?
Well, I actually think Senator Romney's proposal is a bit more creative because it simultaneously sweeps away a lot of the existing outdated programs and credits, the child tax credit, TANF, earned income tax credit. So it's a meaningful bureaucratic consolidation while at the same time being a generous benefit for families and for kids. It's very creative, and some of the most innovative policymaking I've seen in the post-Trump environment from the GOP in a long time. So I'm actually talking with Senator Romney and his team right now about the House version of that bill. But it's encouraging to see Republicans get into that game, and I salute them for that effort.
I agree, and that, by the way, they ought to be willing to trade some minor tweaks to their proposal in order to get some Republican bipartisan support. Because if you offer it and they turn it down, we will have a story to tell of what they preferred, which was bureaucracy and public employee unions, not defense and families. Mike Gallagher, thank you, Congressman.